Passion, purpose, possibilities. They're all right there. But sometimes we need a little push. And that's where SheSez comes in. Think of it as a master class taught by the world's most interesting women, sharing stories and ideas, because girlfriends help each other. This is SheSez with Linda Grasso. Hello and welcome to SheSez. Our guest today is Shiva Rose. Shiva started out life in Iran, moving to the United States at the age of 10 to escape the revolution. She started out her career as an actress, and while in her 20s, married a fellow actor. Shortly after the birth of their first daughter, Shiva suffered from a painful autoimmune disease. It was a game changer for her, sparking an interest in health and wellness, which in turn led to her creating a holistic skincare line. Shiva, I'm so grateful for you taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I want to start right around the timeline of when you gave birth to your first daughter. Back up even before that, did you have a healthy lifestyle? Were you calm and centered and eating healthy? Because a lot of people who get autoimmune diseases feel that it was a sort of stressful, unhealthy lifestyle that led to it. Was that your case?
Well, you know, I suffered a lot of trauma as a child. So I think now looking back, a lot of that could have been contributed to childhood trauma that sort of lays dormant in your life. And usually autoimmune issues attack women in their reproductive years. So from their late 20s to their 40s, that's usually when women get diagnosed. So I think it's partially that. And I was a very strict vegetarian from a young child because I grew up in rural Iran, and I used to see like baby lambs killed and goats and pets suddenly in the pot, you know, for dinner. So it turned me into a vegetarian by moral choice. And I think that that actually wreaked some havoc on my body because I was eating a lot of pastas and breads and muffins for energy. So I think that also contributed to the autoimmune issues because it was all, you know, now we know GMOs and contaminated wheat and all of that.
So when you speak of trauma, you're specifically talking about the trauma of moving here at the tender age of 10 and having to escape something so scary.
And there was, you know, a couple other things I think as a young child, but yes, mostly that. And just being, you know, being a refugee basically.
Yeah.
Coming from that to going from having a life to nothing, basically being told, you know, being woken up in the middle of the night and told you can take one thing, we're getting on a plane and we're leaving, you know. So you basically leave whatever life you knew. And then the what that does to your parents and seeing that too, that stress. So yeah, it was quite crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine. So after you had your first daughter, what was the first sign of trouble that you knew that you weren't healthy?
You know, I had my daughter fairly, well, by LA standards, it was young. I was 26, and I just didn't have the bounce back. And I was acting, and I remember actually vividly meeting with some managers and agents, and they were like, you know, you got to do something about the dark circles, and, you know, you're awfully thin, and I was like, what are they talking about? And then it was just like the exhaustion. I was like, God, this motherhood thing is crazy. How do people do it? Because I was just exhausted and achy and just wasn't getting the bounce back. And then I actually went to a dermatologist because I had a mark on my back, and I always assumed I had sat on a radiator and burned myself. That was sort of the story I told myself. But he said, oh, that looks really interesting. And he took a biopsy, and he was the one who actually said, you need to go see a rheumatologist. And then I was sitting in the rheumatologist's office, and he told me I had a year to live, basically, because of all the, you know, it was like this triple threat of rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and scleroderma. Scleroderma actually hardens the collagen in your body, so it was moving towards my lungs. It was on my back, but going towards my lungs. But, you know, I'm a rebel by nature, so something in me knew that there was another way.
So did you try traditional treatments at that point?
I did. I went to I left that rheumatologist because he was such a bad news bears sort of man, and I found a lovely man, Dr. Wallace, in UCLA. But I have done over the years, I did Western traditional things that did not work for me. And then I found Dr. Saram Khalsa, who was a Sikh, and he told me he would start getting me to feel better within the year. And I mean, it took longer. It's been a process, but he definitely got me on the path to holistic living and just another way when I was 26. That was sort of the opening.
So share with me some of those holistic treatments. What were those alternative treatments?
Oh my goodness, it was everything from vitamin pushes. I mean, this is way back in the day. This is before the internet. So I know at his office, they would do acupuncture, herbs, vitamin pushes.
Did you have lots of people saying, Shiva, you've lost it. You're wacky.
Definitely.
Now everyone's doing that. But back then, you were like this crazy woman.
Exactly. And I'm used to that pretty much. I mean, everything I've been doing all my life is so normalized. I'm looking for the next thing. So I'll get to that later, but I'm definitely
I really want to hear about that.
Yeah, I always tell people now I've got to go left of left. I'm so left, I'm right. But so what happened is I used to go to the Santa Monica Homeopathic Pharmacy as well and research. This is before the internet, so I would just research in books. I would research homeopathy and herbs and try to find out what was happening, because also I had a lot of hormone stuff happening at such a young age. So that got me on the path.
So that sparked your interest in health and wellness, and you started a blog.
Yes, I started the blog, though. So I sort of got my health in a place where I could manage and live a life. And I was an actor. And then 9 years ago, my ex-husband and I divorced, and my life sort of crashed and burned again. I was just telling an herbalist that today. I feel like it's happened twice in my life, first as a child and then later when I got divorced. But these are, it's the phoenix rising from the ashes. These things actually make us. They either make you or they break you.
And the truth is, life is filled with traumatic experiences. I mean, everyone has them, from losing a loved one to, not to belittle what you've been through, but
no, exactly.
That's just part of life.
Yeah, and it's how you roll with it. That's what I'm learning.
That's what it is.
Even if it's a little thing, even if it's like little minor things through your day, it's how are you rolling with it. That's because things are going to happen no matter where you're at in your life. So you had a second child. I had a second child, and then right after that, my marriage started to come apart. And when she was 2, so I was getting divorced. I was looking for a home for my daughters. My health issues all started flaring up, and I know it's the perfect storm. And so I just moved and found a home near nature, sort of close to what I grew up with. And I decided to document this sort of going back to the earth. And I stopped acting. I transitioned from acting. I just knew, like, something intuitively was telling me that the earth and getting closer to nature and something is going to heal me that way.
And FYI, acting's not the most nurturing of professions.
I mean,
it's particularly if you're not under 30.
Right. I mean, I love actors and I love artists and I love storytelling. Yeah. But it wasn't being an actor. I mean, there's so much rejection, and
your gut was telling you to move on.
Yes, and of course, the rejection, consciously we can accept it, but unconsciously, I'm doing a lot of work right now on unconscious beliefs, and you're rejected 99% of the time. How does that not affect you? But I did a lot of theater and wrote a lot, so I did fulfill myself creatively, as well as doing TV and film and commercials. But you do find ways as an actor.
And so you started the Local Rose blog,
yes.
And it's all about cutting edge health and wellness, and it's presented in such a beautiful way, I have to say.
Thank
Very
you.
editorial.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me, because at the time when I started it, I actually remember meeting with some blogging agents in New York, and they were like, oh, well, it's just too hippie, too granola. No one's interested in the wellness movement, thing.
That's so funny.
This is like maybe 6 years ago, but now it's like, what?
You're a trailblazer.
Thank you. Thank you. But I think that the key is, like you said, it has to be aesthetically pleasing. The pictures have to be beautiful. It has to be sort of like any other lifestyle blog, but it has a holistic.
So with your blog and your readers, you embarked on this path of how can I live healthier? What are the cutting edge things people are doing? And I thought it was funny. I saw somewhere you described yourself as a spiritual whore.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me some of this stuff. You started doing like Kundalini Yoga.
Oh, my gosh.
What else?
Takes me forever to get out of the house now. I have so many tools that I use. I do a lot of practices. Daily I do Kundalini Yoga.
Okay, back up for a sec. What exactly is Kundalini Yoga?
Kundalini Yoga is, interestingly enough, the first person who introduced me to Sikhism is Dr. Saram Khalsa when I was 26. They are the ones who wear the white turbans. It all comes from Yogi Bhajan, who had this sort of download. He was like this guru teacher in India, and he came to America in the 60s and 70s. And what he saw was a lot of young, beautiful people who were on drugs. And so he started to teach them these methods of meditation that change the neural pathways in your brain and actually create new neural pathways. And it's very scientific and it works. And so he created a movement. And so these American Sikhs that you see with the white turbans, it's a whole community, and I'm very enmeshed in it. I go to tantric yoga in New Mexico once a year, and there's a tantric coming up at UCLA, and I do it because it changes
What
your
does
life.
the word tantra mean?
Well, there's different versions. There's white tantra, which is meditation, and you do it with a partner. And then there's red tantra, which is more sexual situation. And this is not sexual. Yogi Bhajan's teachings are not. I mean, there's definitely sexual teachings, but it's not. That's a whole different school of using the sexual energy for creativity, which Kundalini does as well.
It must have been so cool for you with your interest, and you're doing this blog, and you're learning about these different practices, and you're actually doing them.
Yes, well, the whole idea too was to help people, because I've been in the depths of despair. I've been suicidal. I've been depressed. I've been like at the bottom of the bottom, and then but you can reach once you've been there, you can also reach the joys and the heights, and without substances. You can get this on your own. And so the whole idea is to share it with people and to help people. Because I do get a lot of people now more and more people with autoimmune issues. So
I would imagine that they'd be really interested in your approach. You credit it to your Health and Well-Being Now, this non-traditional, holistic, alternative way that you went, right? Because the traditional medicine didn't work for you.
Well, for some people it can, and if you're in dire circumstances, you should do what you have to do. But for me, there was always collateral damage. Like I would do steroids, and I would have a cyst explode ovary explode with a cyst. So I saw the collateral damage. I saw the cause and effect of certain Western medicines on my body. I took Plaquenil for years, which is a anti-malaria pill, but my liver was compromised. So I could see when I started to make that correlation, I was like, okay, I need to go back to, the simplest herbs, diet, spirituality.
I think, for so many people, though, not even to explore it. I mean, I think Eastern and Western works best. My opinion is when they work in tandem. I have several girlfriends who have don't take their Synthroid, and they're taking all kinds of other things for thyroid problems. And I'm always a little about that, because my doctor went to medical school for many, many years, and they're reading these online articles, and they're going to herb people, and I still think there's something to be said for physicians who attend medical school.
To yourself,
but doing both. Yes,
I think it's ultimately you see what feels good for you. You see what feels good,
and try it. Try different things in tandem.
Listen to it, and like iodine. I've tried iodine, to get off nature Thyroid, which is a more natural form of Synthroid. I've experimented, and it's a lot of work too, and that's why some people take the other avenue, because yes, you have to get your blood checked, you have to check yourself, and it's not easy.
Shiva, I'm always so curious. Why are so many of us on thyroid medication? Everyone I know has an underactive or an overactive thyroid.
Fukushima has definitely played a part in it, I believe.
What is Fukushima?
Oh, Fukushima is the Japanese. In Japan, there was a nuclear meltdown, and the regular press didn't really cover it. But a lot of that radiation has come here, because we're kind of close to Japan, in some geographically. So children, my daughter has thyroid issues, and I'm pretty sure it's because of that. So, and also we don't have enough iodine. We don't have iodine in our food anymore. Our soil is depleted. We don't get any of the, minerals that we once used to. So that contributes all to the thyroid. And then also all the toxins in the air and the water. Water is huge. I have a very, productive water system on my house, because the chlorine and the fluoride, that
Share
is
with
wreaking
me
havoc.
about that. What kind of water system do you have? Because I'm always interested in improving my own water situation.
I have a reverse osmosis, and then we add back the minerals, because the problem with the reverse osmosis is it can, bleach out the water. And ultimately the best water is spring water. If you can find a spring, there is online sites where you can find springs near you, and it's free, and it's beautiful water. But then again, you want to make sure it's clean. So, but water is integral. I don't know how left you want me to go, but I feel like we are being put to sleep. the water and the food and the air, and that's why so many people have issues with their thyroid, because the fluoride is calcifying our pituitary. Your pituitary is linked to your intuition. When you start decalcifying your pituitary and your pineal gland, you start awakening. And I don't think a lot of people in power want us awakened. I mean, if you really want me to go there, I'll go.
We need an hour show, not a half hour with you, Shiva. I want to take a step back and look at the moment when you came up with the idea for your skincare line. I think you had been doing Kundalini Yoga, right? And
yes.
You had an epiphany.
I did. It came to me. I can't take full credit for it. My teacher, Guru Jagat, I was lucky enough to practice with her a few times a week in my canyon. And this one particular day, there were 3 of us, and we each had a download. My one friend had the download to open a store in Venice, which she did. Guru Jagat, our teacher, had the download to open Rama Studios, which is now in Venice, New York, Spain, Colorado. It's like all over. It's going all over.
The same class.
The same day. And I had the download to make a face oil sell it, to do this face oil that I've always been making.
Now, you'd been making oils for many years.
I had been, yes. And then it just came to me that this was needed. And
how did you make them? Did you go to botanical oil stores? Did you have
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I would, there's a few online places where you can organic stores or organic oils, and I would mix. I just loved being an alchemist in my kitchen or in my garage. So
and when you were making them, was your goal moisturizing, anti-aging? Was it more, were you into the aromatherapy aspects of it? I ask you all this because I like to blend oils too.
Well, I think ultimately it was to get something without preservatives and without toxins, because once you make the correlation that, it's not just the food you eat, it's what you slather on your body, and actually what you slather on your body is going to penetrate your bloodstream much more than what you eat, because at least when you eat something toxic, your liver can bypass some of it. But when you put it on your skin, there's no filter. It goes directly into your bloodstream. So once I had that epiphany, I was like, oh, wow, I've got to eliminate all the things that I use and start telling people and making things, give women other options.
So how did you go about it?
I don't really know. I mean, I made the face oil, and then
you put yourself in a deep meditative state, and then you started making the oils.
I did. It just came to me in that moment, and then I just started making the one oil, and I saw people liked it, and I was like, oh, okay.
And what were the ingredients of the first oil? It was a basic what?
Well, I've been going to Kauai, the island of Kauai, since I was 15, and the women there, the native women, I'm like, what do they do? So they use kukui nut oil, which is an oil that most people don't know here, and it's so good for your hair and your skin. So my face oil has kukui nut, rose hip, sea buckthorn, jojoba, camellia, argan, and then the oil is a special oil that I found, which is not too sweet.
So you start making it, you start giving it to friends, and you got all this fantastic feedback.
Yes. It seemed like it just was the right time. Again, it was divine, because now the beauty industry, the green beauty industry, is sort of, really taking off.
And you started right from the get-go with sustainable packaging and a sort of environmental.
Yes, the candle is coconut wax and lead-free wick, and that was the second product, because this was way before. 5 years ago, it was just kind of, there was definitely companies there, but not so many chic.
It's so funny to look back, because now the market is flooded.
I know.
With all that. Is it a good thing for you and your business? So let's say you sell it on ShivaRose.com.
Thank you.
I think Goop sells it as well.
Yes, Goop and then, Cat Beauty, Detox Market.
But for all our listeners in Indiana and Texas and Florida, they can get it
on
online.
ShivaRose.com. And yes, I'm happy to. Maybe we should do something with your listeners. They can email me and I can waive the shipping or something.
Oh, wow. Bonus. How did that, so I see that you're creative and I see your passion for what you're doing. Marketing a product, though, and getting it out in the public like you have, there must have been a learning curve there. You don't seem to me someone who is super some of these people who market, they're go-getters and they have this fire. You're kind of laid back and you've got this product. Am I missing something?
No, I think
did you have somebody, a mentor, come in and say, hey, let me help you market this, or here's what you need to do?
I think we live in a very interesting time right now. I think social media is both a blessing and a curse. as we all know. I mean, the curse can be that we can get absorbed in it. We can get, start thinking, feeling like we don't have what other people have. And, it starts beating you. You start getting addicted to it. The positive is that we can become our own marketers and we don't need to hire a big PR company anymore. We can just, do things on our own, with the right frequency, connecting, right timing.
And is that what you started, how you started marketing it, just with social media? And
I did. And, I think there's something happening right now, which I was just telling somebody at a dinner this day before yesterday. I think we're in a very exciting time. I mean, LA, in the 60s, we had the music movement that was happening here in the canyons with, Joni Mitchell and the Eagles and all this incredible California rock. And then maybe the movie industry was sort of the thing happening in LA. But right now, the music and the movie industry are not thriving here. But what is thriving is this wellness, California design situation. And I started out in a lot of craft fairs. I started at Echo Park Craft Fair, Mercado Sagrado. All these people started in people's backyards, 5-6 years ago. And now it's become a movement and they're in huge places and people all over the country, all over the world are sort of looking at California, this sort of folky, crafty, holistic. I mean, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, LA has always led the pack when it comes to
yes.
beauty, health, and wellness. No,
and beauty, health, and wellness.
And in fashion, too, I find. I mean, I know New York is the hub, and of course there's Paris. And
No, definitely LA is
but LA, I mean.
Yes, art, too. It's sort of like coming into its own with its art.
Yeah.
And being a native, I was born here. I lived in Iran, but I am a native. So, it's sort of exciting. But the other side of that is it's getting crowded here.
Crowded, expensive.
So
pricey.
I know. So those are probably the dilemmas.
So you started out with a face oil, and now I think you have more than a dozen products. You've got a balm, you have oil. Tell us about how you did that.
Yes, I created an eye cream, which is sold out, but it'll be back in 2 weeks.
What? What's so great about it that it's selling
out? Oh my
out?
gosh, it's so good because it actually does work. It takes away puffiness and dark circles.
What about crow's feet?
Come on, I would do the glow balm. I would do the glow balm and the eye cream
is that
on
the
top.
stuff you put on my hand right before we came in?
The glow balm is very good for
good.
for wrinkles and it's also a good barrier because you're protecting your skin from pollution and from elements outside and weather. The glow balm got a huge following because of the East Coast people in Brooklyn. Strangely enough, women were just like, I couldn't keep it in the stores because it was like a barrier against the cold and because it really conditions your skin and plumps it up and protects it.
So, but you'd say you started out really with the face oil. Now it sounds like the eye cream is the
eye cream, the face
most
balm,
popular.
The cleanser is great because it has pearl powder in it. I don't know many lines that do that, but I'm using a lot of like superfoods in my products now too. I have a couple things coming up. They're like children. I get so excited, but I'm working with cacao and vanilla right now. I love like new things and things that have superpowers.
It's interesting when I look at you, you started as an actress and, then your life kind of imploded a little bit and then you kind of reached deep within your soul and, took these interests that you had and you moved forward with them. Do you feel that you're so much stronger now as a woman than you were?
Definitely.
Back at a time when probably before your life imploded, you thought you were pretty strong. Things were going great. You were an actress. You married a successful actor, and you thought, you felt really strong. And then you had these things happen that really shook you to your core.
You know what I realized? Your body tells you. Your mind, your ego doesn't really help you at times, but your body will tell you. So my body started to break down. So whatever childhood issues that I had thought I had dealt with, that I had not dealt with, sort of reared their heads. So I do think it's always a learning process. It's not like we get somewhere. There's no place to get. It's just the constant, like we said, the daily check-in, the daily work, and just getting stronger in that you can overcome this. And also being in joy, because I'm realizing a lot of us sort of bypass that, being in bliss, being in joy. And that's like a huge part of my work right now. Like what gives you joy? Getting back to pleasure, and maybe that's sexual pleasure, and maybe that's, it's just like a lot of stuff that women, I think we sort of like have taken on the masculine part. And that could be a lot of the havoc that's on the thyroid as well. I don't think we're meant to be, we're supposed to receive and enjoy and, go back to that.
What do your girls think about your reinvention? How and has it given you a sense of pride in showing how you've weathered your storms and you've emerged in the way that you have?
I think my younger one is sort of annoyed with it. She calls me.
How old is
like,
she?
She's 12. She's like,
well.
please don't be a hippie in front of everybody.
She'll appreciate that much
I
later.
hope so.
She will. How about the older one?
The
who's in
older
college?
one really likes it, and she follows the similar life, that I do, but in New York. And she's always like, Mom, there's this great herbal place down the street, or she's definitely living that way.
Was it tough for you when she went to college?
Definitely. I had that moment. I didn't think I would. I was like, what are they talking about? And then it did hit me. It's like like a lover leaves you. You're like, oh my God.
I was shocked at how I reacted. I actually laid in bed for 1 full year before my first son went to college.
Wow.
And I lay on my back.
Year.
And I was, before I'd go to sleep, and hot tears would fly down. And I didn't want to wake my husband because he gets up so early. And I also was embarrassed at my reaction. Like, loser, this is what you do. You raised him so he'd go off and be independent. And you're like this sap clinging to him. And it was dramatic for me. It really was.
I get it. And that's why, because it's so much of us is our identity. So much of us being moms, it's wrapped up in our identity. And I always joke, I say, I need another kid every 10 years because when this one goes, because there's something for me, I need the structure too. I like having somebody to like cook a meal for and like, to the breakfast, dinner. It's like gives me structure. Otherwise, I'm an Aquarius. Otherwise, I'd be like, floating.
And also, one thing that you'll have is when your second goes to college, who knows? You have this whole skincare line and you're blogging and you have kind of your own life. So it's actually easier for you, I would think, than someone who, so many of my girlfriends have worked right up until when their kids go to college. And then it's kind of a shell shock moment.
The spiritual life. We need the spiritual life. We're spiritual beings. If that helps too, and that helped me a lot with the emptiness thing, or partially emptiness. It's the spiritual life. That's it. We are spiritual. We need it. We need a practice. I'm a firm believer in that. Whether it's even being quiet in nature, whether it's just sitting by yourself and connecting to the source of all things, whether it's God, whether it's religion. We are spiritual. I think that helps too. That gives you direction. Mm-hmm. Then you can listen.
What's next for you and your line? I mean, you've already created so much. What new and cutting edge directions, enlighten us, are you going to go in? I'm always interested to learn about the latest Kundalini technique.
Well, I do a lot of yoni egg.
Oh my gosh, here we go again. I got to ask again, what is that?
So yoni egg is so the women in the concubines in China first started using these jade eggs that they would put up in their yoni, or their sacred space, their female organs. They would put it inside, and it would do things like strengthen that area. And that not only strengthens your willpower, your connection to your intuition, it can also make it, more pleasurable for your partner.
So wait a minute, back. It's all new to me. I think I actually saw something about this somewhere online, but these are the questions I always wanted to ask, and now I have Shiva again. So once you put that inside you, do you feel it then? Or, are you supposed to be doing like pelvic floor muscle type
and
thing?
That's the thing. Women have lost their connection to their yonis. And this is another thing I think that happens, especially after having children as well, or just 60% of women have issues with incontinence and, and a lot more with orgasm. It's really huge.
Well, the incontinence has to do with loose Kegel muscles, right?
Yes, but Kegel muscles are, controversial because you can do them incorrectly. And the jade egg sort of helps you.
Wow.
And you don't feel it at first, but eventually you build up. So you can actually feel
once you put it in there, does it stay in there?
Not always. When you're laying down, I can, I show people how to do it, or I talk about it on my blog, where you lay down and you do it laying with your back down. And when you're standing up, you do, if, some women can keep in them, some can't. And they shouldn't feel bad about that, because that's just, it's like you really have to work. It's like going to the gym. You have to work that muscle. But it's connected to it's so much connected to your determination, to your,
And are these available, these yoni eggs, on your website?
Yes.
I don't even feel like I'm such a loser. I can't even pronounce it. Is it pronounced yoni egg?
Yes,
okay.
Yoni egg. And especially for women who are getting older, because it connects, it helps with hormones and, lubrication and all these things that women start losing sight of as they get older.
Very interesting.
Yes. On the Local Rose blog, I have a shop, so I sell them there. Yes.
I have so enjoyed talking to you. Now, I end each episode of SheSez. I'm so distracted by the yoni egg. I'm just
We had to get that in there.
Absolutely. I mean,
well, you know what? I think it's part of beauty. I think for women, it's like it's somebody. I read somewhere. It's like a room in your home, and it's not being used. There's a room in there, like, go put some flowers and a dresser. And once you awaken that room, you'll see it affects your face. It affects your joie de vivre. It affects a lot.
Shiva, I end each episode. Look, you're the one that's giggling. I have a straight face now. Stop it. Shiva, I end each episode of SheSez with some takeaways for our listeners at home. What can we learn from your story?
Oh, wow. I guess that there's an expression in the Japanese form of Buddhism that I practice where you can turn poison into medicine. So I would say that anyone can turn poison into medicine.
Thank you, Shiva, for joining us. I've so enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening. Do us a favor, if you like what you heard, give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. I know it's hard to do. It's not the easiest thing in the world. But go to Apple Podcasts, the little purple dot on the list on your home phone, highlight or put in SheSez with Linda Grasso, and then highlight the 5 stars, find where you write a review, and do it for us. We'd so appreciate it. Thank you for listening.